Hello and welcome to this installment of Talkin Trim. I'm Jonathon Skinner and today we're looking at the Dashtop crash rolls for the Jaguar XK150 models. Now there are three different versions of this in terms of actually the hardware for the car, and also then it affects the material covers for them between the open two-seater Roadster, the Drophead Coupe and the Fixed Head Coupe. This is actually from a Drophead Coupe. But the overall concept between all three of them is exactly the same pretty much. Like I say, the shapes did change. It's all related to the curvature of this item around the car, and which obviously then affected the covers themselves. But the overall concept of how they're trimmed is almost identical, so you can use this as a basic guide. What I want to do with this video here is it's not really an in-depth guide as to how to do it, but as we trimmed up one, I was sort of taking some photos which I plan to use for online tutorials and guides in the future, and I was talking to my trimmer about it, and he suggested that it'd be worthwhile for me to do an interim video of one trimmed up ready to go and the other one kind of stripped down ready for the next stage. So I thought I'd heed his advice and do that. So it is our intention to do online guides and also video tutorials for our customers to be able to fit our parts, but that is some way off. As you can imagine, that's quite a big job for us to do all of the different parts for all of the different cars that we do, but it is in the works, so watch this space. In the interim period, I always encourage our customers to get in contact with us on an ad hoc basis if they require any assistance in the trimming process, so do not be afraid to ask. But in the interim period, I figured, you know, something's better than nothing, so let's dive on in. So just to clarify what we're talking about, talking about these Dashtop crash rolls here. So it's the bit you'd headbutt if you had an incident. So you got a left panel, a right panel, then the center panel. The center panel, very straightforward, trimmed all the way around. We'll ignore that. Really quite straightforward. It's these left and right panels here. What we've done is we've trimmed up this left one here for the most part, and then the right one we stripped down, but we haven't done any tidying up or trimming of it yet. These are all original parts that have come off the car. However, the trim was not original. Far from it. These are actually been made in a synthetic PVC, not a cowhide. And the rest of the trim that we've been doing for the customer is, yeah, very interesting interpretation of a retrim, shall we say. So you always have to be careful of these sorts of things, because often people are working by what they've gotten as an example, and sometimes that can be quite misleading. So just bear that in mind. But yeah, we've stripped this one down. You can still see the remnants of some interesting takes on how things are fitted, including these fixings I believe are wrong. The way that they trim this top part here with foam, which you can still see on the vinyl here, is incorrect. There was no millboard panel over the top of it, which there should be. That's what this is here, but hey ho. Anyway, the process of trimming these is kind of done in two main parts. It's also worth noting that the demister vents slots here, there were two different versions of them. There were material versions, as per these ones, or there were chrome versions. Now, if you are familiar with my YouTube channel, you'll know that we've done a couple of videos showcasing some of these parts trimmed up, ready to be fitted into the car. And one of those examples, I believe, was a biscuit open two-seater Roadster kit for Dave Turner, actually, from Classic Car Cave on the YouTube channel. So worth checking out his channel and YouTube videos, which had our kit in it. Now, the chrome versions are really quite straightforward, because you don't really have to do anything to them. You just fit everything around them and they're done. Whereas these material ones are not as straightforward, unfortunately, and yeah, quite tricky. So let's start with that. You take this is obviously on there as such. You take that off, you know, tidy it all up, etc., which, like I say, we haven't fully done yet. And this piece of material here, now this one's been done in leather because the customer's kit is full leather, but we have skived the leather down on our in-house leather skiving machine. Effectively, it thins the leather down, cuts off the backing of it, which is ideal for these sorts of small intricate pieces. I believe originally those pieces would have been a vinyl or leather cloth material, but like I say, it's a full leather kit, so we have done them in leather. These elements were always leather on the XKs, just FYI. Now, two trains of thought on the way these are trimmed. The way we've done it, and please do excuse, I'm doing everything one-handed, so it's not going to be the easiest thing to show you, is put it over the top like that, effectively push in, trim down there and down there, make a slit down the middle and trim there and there on the inside. So you can see here the flap that's gone over the top and inside, so that's down in there. So effectively that's what you should be doing and working your way around. Now bear in mind, it doesn't necessarily need to be extremely consistent and accurate going all the way around, as long as you've got a decent amount in that area there and glued down, then as long the rest of it's going to be completely out of eye shot when it's all said and done in the car. So as long as you're prioritizing making sure that what's going to be in the eye shot is trimmed, then you're all good and work it around the corner. Same again here, doesn't really matter if it's not coming up to the edges on here and here. In fact, I don't think that would be possible, the material's not wide enough. It doesn't matter because all of that gets covered over. Also keep in mind obviously how they actually fit in the car. So like that there, you want to be prioritizing that edge there because that's the one you're going to see if you see any of it. So just keep that in mind. And the way we kept this in place, obviously you're using a proper contact adhesive, and the way we kept this in place once it was mainly glued was we got a thick piece of, we actually had some sort of rubber string as it were, and we just pulled that round and kept it in nice and tight, and we left it overnight just so it really set and went into the corners very nicely. So that's what we'd recommend you kind of do with that element there. Once that's trimmed and everything's set, that then gets reattached to that piece there. Okay, I'm going to put that to one side, even though effectively that is meant to be back on there now. Now the next part is all related to this element here, and it's a bit of a tricky one to explain, but I'll do my best. First thing you do is you're gluing your latex foam back on. We'd recommend using new ones to give it a good bit of density. This is the old one that came off, which isn't as rigid and firm, so recommend new ones. They are shaped, so you can see the top edge is that edge there. So you're gluing that in place. They are slightly longer than they need to be as well because we make them generic for all the 150s, so you might have to cut some down. When you cut some down, only do it when you're really confident of how much needs to be chopped off, but also always keep what you cut off just in case you need to put it back on. There is also a bit of a ridge, so you're sort of gluing it in line with the bottom there, but you'll end up with a tiny ridge up there, which is correct. That's absolutely fine. I'll come on to that shortly. So once that's in place there, what you're then doing, this is the lever, almost the rectangle part of it here is the part that goes around there, so that's the bit that gets looped around there. You're trimming that part first. So you're basically lining the piping up on that ridge section there, and you're wrapping this part round the rubber and onto the underside of this metal and trimming that round. Don't worry too much about the ends at this stage. All you're doing is wrapping that round there. So we're going from this piece of piping here, round the foam and over that kind of ridge section there underneath. Like I say, this end here, there's absolutely no need to actually trim that at all because that gets hidden underneath this when it's done, and this end here will come to a bit later. So once that's in place there, you're effectively going to have this part here exposed. Obviously that's still on top there, but this part here is effectively exposed. Then you've got a bit of piping and a lever going around there. So this part here, which is the part that does the top, this is a flap at the moment. Okay, next thing you're doing, you got your millboard panel and a slot in it for the mist vents. You can see how that's going to sit on top there. The idea now is to trim or semi-trim this lever to this here, but you're only doing part of it. The only part you're concerned with is the slit here. We just want to literally get that lever through this slit and trim all the way around the edge there. Effectively, the rest of it here, you'll still have a flap on here. The rest of it will not be trimmed. You'll still have flaps at the end here and here. Okay, so that's what you're kind of doing. And the best way of doing that is obviously put that in place there, pull the lever around that's obviously trimmed to this section here, and then kind of we always effectively push the lever down so that this is coming through, and then you'll get a bit of a friction mark where the hole should be, and you're then drawing on the lever to see exactly where it is, taking it off as much as you can, and then doing a slit down the middle and trimming round. So then effectively you'll have a millable piece which is semi-trimmed on just down the centre piece here, and then the rest of the unit there. At that point you're putting everything back on. The trimmed piece, this is now a trimmed piece of leather effectively, would slot over there like that, and then the rest, these edges here, will get trimmed round and onto the underside round there. So that's the crux of what's going on with this element here. Like I say, these inside edges really doesn't matter. Obviously you want to trim it back slightly to make it a bit neater, but effectively it doesn't matter. They are all covered up by this piece here. You'll also find, and this does change from model to model, that the curve here is quite tricky to do. This part here is quite easy, but this part here, you're going to have wrinkles. And you're going to have wrinkles from that early stage. Don't worry too much about that there. Now, obviously, to get rid of wrinkles, you need to displace leather and move it in different directions, different tolerances of tension, etc. So there's a lot of stuff that can be done literally by doing that exact process of literally ungluing a little bit and pulling it in different direction, etc, etc. But after that, it's a case of using heat, gentle heat. So we actually have a steamer here, which is fantastic for it. But if you don't necessarily have that element of things, the next best thing is a hairdryer. Loosen up the material a little bit, and then pull it in different directions. You could use a heat gun, but heat guns can be very dangerous to use because you can end up, worst, burning the leather, but two, using heat guns tends to take away some of the pattern of leather as well. So on grained leather, it turns it kind of smooth and whatnot. So steam is perfect for it, but I realise that the element of steam is not necessarily something that everyone's got use of in their household, although potentially using an iron and putting it next to it, not literally touching the iron on the leather, but actually just letting the steam come out the bottom of it and using that can be done. But effectively, yeah, you're going to struggle to get a neat finish going around there unless you've got some sort of heat or steam to get the creases out of that there. So just bear that in mind. The end pieces here, they're tricky and they don't look particularly neat, but it doesn't matter because they butt up literally to the windscreen pillar section here. So obviously you're doing the best you can to get a nice neat finish. I've got another picture. Not really. Yeah, you can see there. Literally butts up to it. So doing your best you can, and we obviously we like to be consistent as well. So we'll try and make the left and right sides look the same as one another. But a fold's probably the easiest way of doing it. Back on itself there, and just know that when that's in the car, that's going to get pushed right up there, and so you're really not going to see any of that end piece there. So just bear that in mind. But they are tricky to do, and they do change between different cars, which makes them either easier or harder. So just bear that in mind. But that's the overall general concept of how you trim those for the most part anyway. Hope you found that useful. Please remember to like and subscribe and share a lot of the classic car enthusiasts. And of course, do keep in mind that we are constantly working on guides, but in the interim period, always contact us on an ad hoc basis and we can go over elements for you. We're trying to build a real community of knowledge and education with these cars, as we're fully aware that the generation that first started this rather small cottage aftermarket has, the market's grown into a rather big and expensive market these days, but unfortunately the people that had a lot of the knowledge and resources are retiring, and some of them sadly passing away. So it's I'm on a bit of a one-man mission, shall we say, to make sure that I get everything detailed as well as possible so that my customers are informed. Anyway, enough on that. Please do check out our website. Of course, if you've got any questions, contact me directly. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.